respected dignitaries on the dais, of course, off the dais, and my young chartered accountants. Of course, you are entering a new field. Just now I heard, what kind of tough exams you underwent and you qualified. That's why I want to first congratulate and welcome to this new world of CA world. Of course, Sharmaji was mentioning you are the future of India, but Sharmaji, I don't agree with you. They are the future of the world, because today whole world is eyeing on India, because India being the youngest country in the world, youth nation of the world, 50% of the population is 26, 27 years age, where you all come. That's why today we have to plan our things, we have to set our syllabus, our trainings, not to keep our own needs, but it is the global needs. That's why I said you are the future of world. Okay, so let me first, what kind of CS I imagine. Of course, because just I was listening, I want three things before I start. One is professionally competent. I want three things, just maybe you can look at what kind of CS I am imagining, because it's a future India. So one is professionally competent, second one is technically sound, and third one is socially relevant chartered accountants. This is what lacking. Okay, got it? Professionally competent, technically sound, and socially relevant chartered accountants this country needs, and I hope you are with me on that. So of course, when I say professionally competent, because we are living in a globalized, liberalized, interdependent world. Okay, so you as a young chartered accounts, you are going to start your career. Of course, this is one area. As a chairman Higher Education Council, I always say in lighter way, what is my family size? 20 lakh student comes under me, 2 lakh faculty members and equally non-teaching, and 40 universities, 20 direct and 20 indirect. That is my family size, and of course bigger family, bigger challenges also. I need not talk about that. So this is what So yes, you as a in chartered accounts, you are going to start a new thinking. I heard one good word, it caught me actually. You are the soldiers, financial soldiers, something I heard. Yes, you want to be a soldier, financial soldier. So what kind of vision, what kind of thinking you need to have, how these influencing. I always say that any profession, but more particularly finances, there are 5-6 things which are influenced, which are going to influence, okay, you as a chartered accountant. One is the globalization. You all know that when I referred globalization, today we are living in a globalized, liberalized, interdependent, interconnected world. That's why your profession is going to have a lot of challenges and also opportunities. Okay, when I say globalization, I don't know how many of you studied, because you have to have a all-round knowledge, because you are going to advise companies, your clients. So that's where you need to have some sort of comprehensive idea about many things. But so if I say globalization, there is a one agreement. You as a CS, I am telling three things I always say. One is ignorance of law is no excuse. You all know that, whether you are a chartered accountant, law professor, or student, or anybody. So three common things I want to share with you. One is ignorance of law is no excuse. Yes, you agree with me, because as a citizen you should have an idea about law. You need not be expert, you need not be legal luminary, but idea about law. Okay, because you can't say that I don't know law, I will do mistake. That's one important. Second, ignorance of constitution. Yes, that is also important, because constitution is the fundamental law of the land, important law of the land. All laws comes from, originates from the constitution. That's why we as a citizens of this country have to have idea about the constitution. I always say, as a student of law, we know India is a secular country, all religions, we have religions and religious books, whether it is the Gita, Quran, whatever, Bible, all these fact books are protected by the constitution. That's why if you ask me as a student of law, what is my religious book, I'll say constitution, because constitution which protects other religious books. That's why we as a citizens of the country has to have an idea about the constitution. Okay, that is one second thing. I'm speaking to the newly this chartered accounts. I want to mention one more thing That is, ignorance of WTO is no excuse. You all know that. Have you heard WTO? World Trade Organization? Have you heard or not? Part of your syllabus. Today, we can't, you as a chartered accountant, you can't afford to ignore, WTO, because today WTO, World Trade Organization, for namesake only 3 words, but it has 180 agreements. You name anything, I can tell you it's part of the World Trade Organization, including the GATS, General Agreement on Trading Services, because all you are going to advise, you are part of the service sector is assuming lot of importance, you are going and giving advice. So that's why all the professional courses, one more point I want to refer is, all the professional courses, okay, part of, business services in GATS, then we have professional services. In professional service, all medicine, engineering, CA, architecture, all these services are now integral part of this treaty which India is signed. India is consented, India is accepted. That's where, being a sovereign country or countries, we have a choice whether to accept or not, but once we say yes to any international treaty, it is our obligation, legal, moral, ethical, whatever you call it. So that's why today India is part of the World Trade Organization or GATS agreement, where all the services are part of that, and your service also. That's why your competition is not sitting your friend beside or adjacent to you. Your competition is with whom? Global competition. That's where this agreement also talks about what kind of challenges, opportunities. Okay, today I said globalized world. Okay, if you say I don't want to, but entire 160 plus services, because you are going to advise your clients. So 160 services plus services are part of this agreement, including your own services part of that. What it says. Why I am referring is that what kind of opportunities, what kind of challenges you have. In 1 minute I will tell you. This agreement says all these services, 4 modes of supplier services, because I am speaking to CA, I can use your language. Modes of supply of services, 4 modes: cross-border service, consumption abroad, commercial presence, movement of natural persons. Of course, these are all very important. When I say cross-border service, today both service provider and receiver sits in their respective place. Service happens, you as a chartered accountant sit in India and you can advise your client in USA. How? Through technology, email, fax and all those things, and you will get your money through wire. Where are the borders? Sharma ji, this is what today. So we are living in a globalized world. So once what you require is talent. Once you recognize that X services is available in India or X can give, world is open for you. No worry about that. I am going a step further. What they said, and I agree with them, saying that cross-border services, consumption. I said movement of natural person. Other 4 mode is going to be very useful for countries like India, because we have a talent. In talent, I told you just now that 50% of the population is you all. So this is a kind of things are happening. That's why. So we all have to get ready to face that competition, and opportunities are there. So 5, 6 factors very quickly, because I have other program also. But I before that, you as a chartered accountant, you should remember how things are happening. One, globalization, I told you. Second one is liberalization. How your profession is influenced or going to be influenced. That's why you as a financial soldiers, I think you should remember these 4, 5 things. Globalization, globalization part of global treaties, all, liberalization, last 35 years, the kind of liberal, policies we adopted, approached, and, it is giving, result. Then private participation is happening, third, privatization. 4th one is digitization. Yes, earlier speakers spoke about technology. I said professionally competent, technically sound, socially relevant, chartered account. So technology is now integral part of humanity. Whatever the profession we have, whatever the job you take or advise, but technology is integral part of all of us. What is the technology? When technology started, how technology influencing all of us, and you as a CS, how it is going to influence in 2-3 minutes. What is the technology? You are, sleep with technology, woke up with technology, walk with technology. Technology is integral part of you, better than, sitting this side you are. What is the technology? How technology is impacting or going to impact the CA profession, I will tell. Technology is the application of scientific knowledge for practical industrial purpose work. When technology started, can anybody tell? Because you should be all-rounder. When technology started, I am posing a question. I am a very selfish person. You know what is my selfish? I want to learn from you because that is my selfish. Because I can see the wonderful students, those who passed toughest exam. That's why I cancelled my other programs and I am here. I want to learn from you. So, okay. What is the technology? When technology started, technology is not new to the humanity. Go to any civilization, technology was used by humanity for betterment, comforts, whether wheel technology to, sanitation technology. But how the transformation is happening, I will tell you. Over the centuries, because of inventions, innovations, discoveries, technology was more prone. Whether it's like gunpowder, say lake, electricity, renaissance, reformation movement, printing press, sea route, sea trade, all these inventions helped and last 400-500 years without taking your time. The kind of revolutions which is part of, integral part of technology is scientific revolution, political revolution, industrial revolution, information revolution, communication revolution. I say 17th century scientific revolution, 18th century political revolution, 19th century industrial revolution, way back in 1716 to of course first, second, third. Today we are fourth industrial revolution, or you know better than me, 4.0. Okay, 20th century communication. We are in 21st century. What is the revolution? We are all part of that. Can anybody? Knowledge revolution. Technology is part of that. Today we are in knowledge. And friends, I can tell you, history tells us, it's not me, but those countries who possess knowledge, they rule the globe. I can tell you, 19th century belongs to Europe because of their hegemony in technology, knowledge. 20th century, American century. 21st century, Sharmaji, I rightly agree with you, 21st century is Asian century. Of course, when we say Asia, countries like India is going to play a very important role. That's why I can tell you, next to 2 to 3 decades belongs to Asia and more particularly India, because we talk about next 20 years are very important. Why? Why? We talk about Vikasit Bharat 2047 or Atmanirbhar Bharat 2047 or Amrit Kal 2047, or in Telangana we say that Telangana Rising 2047, our neighbor Andhra Pradesh says Swarnandhra 2047. You all know that 2047. It's going to be a very historic moment when we are going to celebrate our 100 years of independence in a different country. What is that? That's why I always say we are in transition to transform India from a developing country to developed country, from the third world country to third largest economy, from importer economy to exporter economy, and in your language, from a regulator economy to facilitator economy, FDIs and all those. This is the kind of transformation which is happening. You are going to be part of that. That's why I think, your profession is going to play a very significant role. Yes, I told up to, 20th. And last 25 years, we use a buzzword. In 1 minute, I am summing up the technology, how it is going to influence all of us, you. Last 25 years, we use a buzzword, net technologies. What do you mean by net? NET. You use better than me, New and emerging technologies. I call them as A to Z technologies because these technologies are an integral part of your profession. That's why I'm making. I call them as A to Z technologies. What do you mean by that? That means you name any alphabet. A means automation to artificial intelligence to big data to Bitcoin technology to cryptocurrency to cryogenic technology to do. I can go on telling. All these are all influencing all of us, and you as a chartered accountant, no exception to this. That's what you all get ready to embrace technology or be part of technology. So that is important. Yes, up to now I spoke all these globalization, liberalization, privatization, digitization. Fifth one is covidization. Have you heard this word? COVID pandemic. You don't find in dictionary, but it is a mykinase. I am not saying that I discovered or invented, but as a social science students, how globalization, liberalization, all these influence. Similarly, covidization is a drastic change. If I say globalization, history for you. But if I say COVID pandemic, everybody is part of that last 5-6 years. What kind of trauma we all went. So COVID pandemic, how it influenced all the decision makings to factories to everybody. That's why COVID pandemic is learned. Sir, I reminded one more. Yes, we India known for Vishwaguru, but COVID pandemic, one change we brought, that is transforming India from a Vishwa Guru to Vishwa Bandhu. You know why I'm Bandhu? Because India supplied, vaccine to 160 countries. That is what, though India is a poor country, developing country, lots of problems are there. But when it comes humanity, I think we took in 160 countries, we supplied vaccination. That is the COVID impact. Or of course, a lot of, many people lost their jobs and factories closed and, industries were, but, that is what, change from Vishwa Guru to Vishwa Bandhu, that kind of things also happening. So, COVIDization, COVID impact, futurization. Sixth one I talk about, yes, so far I talked about, up to now. What next 20 years, 25 years? Great challenge. I already said whether it is a Vikasit Bharat or, being a youngest country, youth nation, I think we all have to, in obligation. As a law person, I speak that, India owes obligation to the global society. We have obligation. What kind of obligation? We have to supply human resource to the global society. What kind of human resource? All. Skilled, unskilled, semi-skilled, super skilled, all. So that's why I think, institutions like this and, we have to help the global society, because globe is eyeing on India, viewing on India, looking towards India. So my humble request is, don't confine to your borders, but we have to help global society. So this is very, important. So as sir was mentioning about here today, being a youngest country, youth country, one thing, last point I want to tell you is that education is important. Next 20, 30 years, education is going to play important. As a chairman, Higher Education Council, what is my vision, mission, object of higher education in Telangana? Higher education at the doorsteps of the needy with affordable cost without compromising quality. Affordability, accessibility, quality, equity, inclusiveness. Keeping in this view, last 1.5 to 2 years, we made entire change. I know, friends, today, education in generally, particularly I represent higher education, it is in the vicious circle. There are lots of challenges. We are, last 10, 12 years, we are not, recruited teachers, no, infrastructure, all this. But we can't, keep on, saying all this. But we have to make change. So what if we have to cut the vicious circle? Where to cut? What is the starting point? Then updated syllabus. Part of that last 1.5 to 2 years, I can tell you, friends, the kind of innovation we in Telangana Council of Higher Education did, and today, lastly, whether it is the National Education Policy 2020 or, across the global best practices, we have to have a multidisciplinary. You as a chartered accountant has to have a knowledge in different, and that is what, you learn, they taught, you learned, and it is going to be useful. So this is the kind of multidisciplinary where student of social science, BA, BSc, BCom, all have to learn apart from their own specialization. Mandatory things in Telangana higher education is one, technology. 10 to 15%, mandatory. For example, introduction to technology, ethics, and all these, like similarly, I'm happy to share with all, friends sitting on the dais, sir. Today, mandatory for, management commerce education is mandatory for all my graduating students in Telangana, okay? Whether BA, BSc, again I am using, that is the kind of, importance the commerce and, many, this comes. So this is, very important, and also law governance related policies and experiential learning. Today we are lacking, in the education system is no connect with the society. Education system is not connected with, so we are making some changes to bring all these things. So this is a part of our, endeavor to make changes in higher education and see that, students all can, get there, whether it's a employment or self-employment, whatever. So lastly, I think any profession, since you are a very important day in your life, so two things again important. One is discipline. I can see you are all so disciplined because I go regularly, today one thing is lacking, like earlier, today parents have a lot of hope on you, because when we studied, this generation is a lucky generation because you have an affordable parent, accessible parent, advisable parent. When we studied, we are not. You know my education background. Entire my education happened in Telugu medium. I studied LLB evening college, BA evening college, LLB evening college, LLM evening. And why I am telling is, please keep that, your hopes of parents. They are sacrificing for sake of you. That's why, I think you are so lucky. Compared to 30, 40 years, we were not so lucky. Our parents were not educated. We are coming from rural background. But lastly, each one of us have to contribute. So as an individual, I always say that individual responsibility, institutional responsibility, and societal responsibility. As an individual, leave it about what my background, but what is my contribution? Say, standing before you and talking about, representing lakhs of students. What is my individual contribution to my country? I am happy to share with you, friends. Last 3 decades, I was putting one, cause actually took up. India doing well in technology, you all know that, particularly space technology. So we are none to anybody, though developing country, but India extremely doing, and we shifted from technology phase to commercial, and India is buying, selling in millions and billions of worth dollar to other countries. Once business happens, litigation comes, courts comes, role of judge is not to make law, interpret law. That law was not there. Then last 30 years, 35 years, I realized that, and I started as a researcher, as a scholar, as a teacher, I drafted space legislation for the country which is pending in the parliament. So as a teacher, we have a freedom. So what is the message I want to give is that you compare to me. 1 minute I told you my background is evening language was a problem, but you are so lucky. If I can do something for my country, you can do better. Yeah? You agree with me or not? That is the message. Not that I am great. No, I have to do lot of things. अभी तो कुछ नहीं हुआ, अभी शुरुआत में हूँ. But मैं बोल दूँ ना. So I think you contribute to your profession, your passion, your maybe whatever. So then ultimately we can contribute to society, and ultimately we can achieve Vikasit Bharat only when we as an individual, we as an institutions can contribute, and ultimately we will have the dream of Vikasit Bharat or developed country, whatever. So lastly, time is important, okay? And discipline, I told you are all very disciplined students. Are professionals. I don't want to call you students. And time. So I always remember and follow is what Ratan Tata said. Single minute won't change in your life, but utilization of every minute definitely change your life. Keep this in mind. Work hard. I wish you all the best for your future endeavor. Thank you.